He leaned back in his chair, smirking like he owned the place. "Judge Judy," he said, voice dripping with arrogance. "You're stupid." Gasps rippled through the audience. Even the bailiff stopped mid-step. But Judy didn't blink. She simply tilted her head, studying him like a surgeon before the incision. What she said next didn't just silence the room. It shattered his confidence so completely. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. The gavel had not yet struck, but the tension already had. The man sat there, arms crossed, chin raised like he owned the courtroom. His grin was sharp, theatrical, the kind worn by people who think rules are only decorations. The cameras caught every flicker of confidence on his face, every blink that said, "I'm untouchable." Across from him, the plaintiff, a young woman in her late 20s, clutched a folder to her chest. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from fear but from holding herself together. She had waited months for this day. Now the man who had humiliated her online and cost her her job was smirking at the very institution that might hold him accountable. Judge Judy entered with the kind of silence that demanded respect. She did not announce her presence. She simply appeared, black robe flowing, eyes already scanning the man like she was reading a case file made of arrogance. "State your name," she said. "Michael Rivers," he replied, leaning back. "But I think you already know that." The tone was playful, but it wasn't play. It was a challenge, one she'd heard 1,000 times before. Judy didn't respond. She just stared. The air thickened. A quiet camera zoom framed the smirk, stretching wider on his face. He mistook her silence for hesitation. "So," he continued, "we're really doing this? Over some feelings?" The plaintiff looked down. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. Judy noticed that detail. Strength under restraint. "This is not about feelings," Judy said, her tone level. "It's about facts. Do you understand the difference?" Michael laughed. "Sure, but you'll find mine more interesting." A few people in the audience chuckled nervously. The bailiff gave a warning glance, one look that said, "Respect the room." Judy leaned slightly forward. The camera tightened on her face. "You said that to me before the hearing," she said quietly. "Do you remember?" Michael tilted his head. "Maybe I say a lot of things." "Yes," she replied, voice cooling. "And today you'll explain every one of them." For a moment the courtroom fell utterly still. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to dim. Narration slipped in like a breath. He thought arrogance was armor. He didn't realize it was glass. The plaintiff began to speak, haltingly at first, then stronger. She described how Michael had used his position at work to discredit her, how he mocked her when she reported his behavior. She had proof, emails, screenshots, but he had followers, an audience that laughed when she lost everything. Michael smirked through it, eyes darting to the cameras as though performing for them. Judy noticed. "You enjoy this attention, don't you?" she asked. He shrugged. "It's just a show." "No," she said, leaning back now, voice steady as steel. "A show ends. Consequences do not." The words landed like a quiet strike. Michael's grin faltered. Just for a breath, Judy's hand hovered above the desk. The room held its inhale. Then she said, calm and final, "Let's see if stupidity can recognize itself." The gavel struck once, not loud, but final. The sound rolled through the courtroom like a quiet storm. Michael leaned back in his chair, that same smirk stitched to his face, as if the last blow of sound had been applause. He cleared his throat, straightened his jacket, and started talking before Judy could even ask. "I just want to make it clear," he said, his tone dripping with self-satisfaction, "that this entire thing is a misunderstanding. I mean, it's ridiculous, honestly." He gestured with open palms like an actor addressing his audience. The cameras followed him. The performance had begun. "I didn't do anything wrong," he continued. "If people are too sensitive, that's not on me. You can't sue someone for being honest, right?" Judy didn't answer. Her expression didn't move. She just blinked once, slow, deliberate, the kind of silence that cut deeper than any rebuke. The plaintiff sat quietly, her folder resting on the desk like a wound waiting to be reopened. Michael went on, each word heavier with arrogance. "She's just upset because I didn't play along. I tell it like it is. Some people can't handle that." He chuckled, shaking his head. "And now I'm here because of that? What a waste of everyone's time." The courtroom murmured, uneasy. The bailiff shifted his stance, not aggressive, just alert. Even the air seemed to hum with disbelief. Judy finally spoke, her tone precise. Mr. Rivers, this is not open mic night. If you're finished performing, perhaps we can start with facts. Her voice was calm, measured, almost too controlled, the kind of restraint that meant danger. Michael scoffed. Oh, come on, Judge, you've seen worse. You can't tell me this is serious. Judy tilted her head. You mean the part where you called your co-worker pathetic in front of clients? Or the part where you told her she should learn how to take a joke after she complained? He shifted slightly. That's not exactly how it happened. No? She asked, tapping the file on her desk. Then enlighten me. Because according to this, your emails read like a confession with bad grammar. Laughter rippled from the audience. Short, nervous. Michael's smile twitched. He leaned forward, voice raised. You're twisting it. Everyone jokes at work. She's just... Stop, Judy cut in, her tone flat as stone. Do not finish that sentence. The silence that followed was surgical, cold, precise, unforgettable. Narration settled in softly. Arrogance speaks fast. Truth waits for the echo. The plaintiff finally lifted her eyes, voice trembling but clear. He didn't just joke, Your Honor. He sent those messages to everyone. I was humiliated. Judy nodded slightly, her gaze never leaving Michael. We'll get to that. For now, Mr. Rivers, tell me, are your lies rehearsed or just careless? Michael blinked. The smirk faded by a fraction. The cameras caught it, the first flicker of unease, and just like that the performance started to crack. The air in the courtroom had changed. It wasn't visible, but it was felt, a quiet tightening like the room itself was holding its breath. Michael's fingers drummed the desk faster than before. That rhythm was nervousness disguised as rhythm. Judge Judy adjusted her glasses and flipped open the folder in front of her. Paper rustled softly, that careful kind of sound that always comes before truth. Mr. Rivers, she said, eyes locked on him, you stated in your written response that the incident occurred on April 10th. Is that correct? He nodded quickly. That's right. Good, Judy replied. Then perhaps you can explain why these messages, she lifted a printed page, are dated April 15th, 2 days after you claimed she left the company. His smile wavered. Only slightly, but enough to be caught by every camera in the room. I might have gotten the date wrong, he said, laughing weakly. Who remembers that stuff? The truth usually remembers, Judy said, voice even. Lies forget. A murmur rippled through the audience. Michael rolled his eyes, trying to recover. Look, it was a joke, okay? I didn't mean anything by it. Judy's voice sharpened just enough to slice through his defense. Intent does not erase impact. You humiliated a co-worker publicly, and now you're mocking accountability in a courtroom. Tell me, Mr. Rivers, what exactly did you mean by calling her a charity case with internet access? He froze. The quote had come from his own email. The plaintiff looked down, eyes wet but calm. Judy's tone softened. Not for him, but for her. You don't have to look at him, she said gently. Just tell the truth. The plaintiff nodded. After I filed a complaint, he posted about me on social media. My name wasn't there, but everyone knew. He laughed about it during meetings. I stopped sleeping. Michael smirked again, but it didn't reach his eyes. You're exaggerating. It was harmless. Harmless? Judy echoed. Then why did you delete those posts 2 hours before this hearing? He blinked. How do you know that? She lifted her gaze slowly. Because you sent an email confirming it. To my clerk. The courtroom erupted in whispers. The bailiff's hand rose for quiet. Narration slid in like a shadow. He thought confidence made him clever. But confidence without truth is just noise. Judy placed the printed messages down like evidence and folded her hands. You are dangerously close to contempt, Mr. Rivers. Choose your next words carefully. He leaned forward, voice cracking. This is ridiculous. You're twisting everything I say. No, she said, calm as gravity. I'm just untangling what you've already knotted. For the first time, Michael didn't have a comeback. His jaw clenched. His eyes darted to the audience, searching for approval that no longer existed. Judy looked down at the folder again, her tone almost quiet. Interesting. These timestamps tell a very different story. And with that, the courtroom froze once more, a silence heavy enough to feel like the sound of truth beginning to breathe. The next sound was paper sliding, soft, deliberate, final. Judge Judy turned another page, her movement slow enough to make everyone lean forward. The courtroom had gone silent, except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Michael sat stiff, his bravado fraying like an old thread. She lifted one sheet from the folder, tilting it toward the light. "This," she said, "is an email you sent on April 15th at 9:42 p.m. Subject line, control the narrative. Does that ring a bell?" Michael's mouth opened, but no words came out. His throat moved like he'd swallowed gravel. Yeah, I sent a lot of emails," he stammered. "What's your point?" Judy's tone didn't change. "The point, Mr. Rivers, is that you wrote, and I quote, 'I told her the truth would ruin her, so she better stay quiet.'" Gasps cut through the air. The plaintiff's eyes widened. She had never seen that email before. Michael tried to laugh, but it broke halfway out. Come on, that's not serious. I was just venting." Judy raised a hand. "To whom?" He hesitated. "My friend. It was private." "It's filed under evidence," she said calmly, setting the paper down. "Your friend forwarded it to the company HR department. Who sent it here?" The smirk finally disappeared. His lips parted, but his expression was blank, a man realizing the ground beneath him wasn't solid. Narration slid in quietly, steady and surgical. Ego never falls suddenly. "Hit cracks, one truth at a time." Judy continued, her voice like measured thunder. "You have accused this plaintiff of overreacting. You have called her weak, but here in your own words you admit to silencing her. Tell me, Mr. Rivers, what part of that sounds like a misunderstanding?" He leaned forward, palms out. "That's not what I meant. You're twisting—" "No," she interrupted, eyes narrowing slightly. "You meant exactly what you wrote, and you've spent every minute here trying to convince the world that your cruelty was confidence." The plaintiff swallowed hard, her breathing uneven. Judy looked toward her, not with pity but recognition. "You were right to stand up," she said softly. "People like him count on silence to stay powerful." Michael's jaw tightened. He whispered something, too low for anyone to hear. The cameras zoomed closer. Sweat traced a thin line down his temple. Judy leaned back, closing the file as if sealing a verdict already forming. "You brought this evidence yourself, Mr. Rivers," she said. "You submitted it as proof that you were honest." His eyes darted up. "Wait, what?" She met his gaze. "You handed me your own confession." The words hit the room like a slow explosion. No shouting, no movement, just shock spreading in every direction. Narration murmured through the silence. The first crack isn't the loudest. It's the one that tells you collapse is coming. Judy's voice cut through once more, quiet, deliberate, merciless. "You brought me your own evidence of dishonesty." The cameras froze on his face. That moment when arrogance finally recognized itself. The echo of Judge Judy's words hung in the air like smoke. "You brought me your own evidence of dishonesty." No one dared to move. The only sound came from a single piece of paper, still fluttering on the desk, caught in the current of the courtroom's stale air. Michael sat frozen, mouth slightly open, trying to locate the swagger he'd lost somewhere between his own arrogance and the truth. His fingers twitched, a nervous tremor disguised as indignation. Then the inevitable defense. "This is ridiculous. You're twisting my words." He slammed his palm against the table. The noise startled even him. The plaintiff flinched, and the bailiff shifted forward one quiet step. Not aggressive, just protective. Judge Judy didn't move. Her voice was steady, calm, unbothered. "I don't twist, Mr. Rivers, I read." "You should try it sometime," the audience murmured, soft ripples of approval, restrained but audible. Michael heard them. His eyes darted toward the gallery, scanning for sympathy. There was none. He tried to laugh again, but the sound came out hollow. "You people are unbelievable. She's making herself the victim because she can't handle reality." Judy's gaze sharpened. "Reality," she repeated. "The one where you called her a fraud in front of clients and told others she'd sleep her way up." The plaintiff's eyes filled, not tears of weakness, but of the memory resurfacing. Judy leaned forward slightly, her tone low but lethal. "You didn't just humiliate her. You made her humanity a punchline. And when she asked for accountability, you called it an attack." Michael looked away. His neck flushed red. "It was a joke," he muttered. "Then explain why you deleted the proof," Judy countered. He didn't answer. Narration slipped in like a whisper over the silence. Arrogance always believes silence will make guilt disappear. But silence is where guilt grows loudest. The plaintiff spoke up, her voice trembling but fierce. "He laughed about ruining me, Your Honor. He told people I was crazy for caring." "That's not a misunderstanding. That's cruelty." Judy turned to her gently. "And cruelty often calls itself honesty," Michael scoffed. But this time it carried no weight. "Oh, please. You're all acting like I'm some kind of monster." "No," Judy said, folding her hands neatly. "Monsters hide. You walked in proudly. The courtroom stilled again. That kind of silence that has shape, density, consequence." Michael blinked, his mouth twitching, searching for a new line, a comeback, anything. None came. Narration returned softly. Every performance ends. The question is how the actor leaves the stage. Judy leaned back, voice barely above a whisper. "You wanted an audience, Mr. Rivers. You have one. And they're watching what truth does to pride." He shifted in his chair, the smirk gone, replaced by the thin, haunted stillness of a man realizing the show isn't his anymore. The lights above flickered, a single hum of electricity breaking the tension. The camera closed on his face. Sweat glistened at his temple, his jaw clenched, his eyes unfocused. Trapped between denial and the first taste of fear, the tension snapped like a live wire. Michael leaned forward, his voice booming across the courtroom. "You think you're always right," he shouted. "You sit up there acting like some saint, while people like me get torn apart for telling the truth." Judge Judy didn't flinch. Her gavel rested still on the desk, untouched. Her calm in the storm was unnerving, the kind that makes rage feel small. When she finally spoke, her tone was cool enough to chill the air. "No, Mr. Rivers, I don't think I'm always right. I just don't lie as often as you do." A ripple of laughter swept through the audience, short, uneasy, sharp. The bailiff gave a small warning glance. Silence returned, heavier than before. Michael's breathing grew erratic. His confidence, once loud and performative, had curdled into something fragile and raw. "You've already made up your mind about me," he said, his voice cracking. "How you don't care about facts." Judy's eyes narrowed slightly. "Facts are all I care about. That's why you're losing." He slammed the table again, louder this time. "You don't understand what it's like being accused of things you didn't mean." The plaintiff looked up, voice trembling but steady. "You meant them when you laughed." That single sentence pierced the room like glass. Judy's attention turned to her. "Go on." The plaintiff's eyes glistened under the fluorescent light. "He posted about me online. Memes, screenshots, things I said taken out of context. I begged him to stop. He said it was content. He called me humorless." Michael groaned, shaking his head. "It was a joke. Everyone jokes online." Judy's tone sharpened. "No, everyone regrets online. You're just late to yours." The courtroom reacted. Some gasps, a few muffled laughs, all quickly silenced by the judge's glare. Michael tried again, clinging to anger like a life raft. "You're blowing this out of proportion. She's exaggerating everything. I didn't even take any money from her." Judy's brow lifted slightly. "Money?" He froze. I mean," her gaze cut through him. "You just mentioned money, Mr. Rivers. Funny because until this moment no one else did." The plaintiff reached for her folder. The camera zoomed in on her hands, trembling but with purpose. She pulled out a single bank statement. $250, she said quietly. "Transferred from my account to his the same week I was fired." The room erupted in whispers. Michael's face drained of color. Judy's tone was almost soft now, dangerous in its calm. "Would you like to explain that withdrawal, or should I?" Michael blinked, sweat forming at his temples. "That it's not what it looks like." "It never is," Judy said. Narration crept in like a pulse. "Ego fights hardest when it's losing the loudest. But pride is a poor defense against proof." Judy leaned forward, her words slicing the quiet. "How you will explain that transaction, line by line." The camera froze on his face, caught between fury and fear. The showman was gone. Only the defendant remained. If you were sitting in that courtroom, would you stay silent or speak up against arrogance when you saw it? The silence that followed Judge Judy's command felt alive. Every eye in the room locked on Michael. His jaw worked, but no words came. The man who had strutted into this courtroom with a smirk now sat cornered, a lion realizing the cage door had closed behind him. Judy's tone remained even, surgical. "Let's start with the transfer. $250 from the plaintiff's account to yours. Was it payment, a gift, or something else?" Michael's throat tightened. It was reimbursement for something I bought her. What exactly? He hesitated. A work lunch. Judy arched a brow. A $250 lunch? The audience broke into low murmurs. The plaintiff spoke up softly. He told me if I didn't send it, he'd lose things that belonged to both of us. Judy turned back to Michael. Did you say that? He fumbled, eyes darting toward the cameras. I don't remember. Convenient, she replied. The dishonest rarely do. Narration slipped in like a measured heartbeat. He had come armed with words, but every one of them was turning into evidence. Judy opened a new file. We obtained your messages from that week. I'll read one. She glanced down, then spoke clearly, each syllable like a hammer. She'll pay. They always pay. Michael's face drained of color. That was your message, Judy interrupted. He swallowed. Yes, but it was about something else. Something else, she repeated. That's becoming your favorite phrase. The plaintiff looked down, whispering more to herself than to anyone. He knew how to make everything sound like my fault. Judy's eyes softened briefly. Not pity, but understanding. They all do until the facts start speaking louder than the tone. Michael snapped, voice cracking. You don't know me. You're twisting every word I say. No, Judy said almost gently. I'm just holding them still long enough for you to look at them. He blinked, confusion replacing defiance for the first time. His breath came shallow. His collar looked too tight. The confident posture was gone. Now he was slumped, defensive, shrinking. Judy leaned forward. Let me make this clear. You told this woman you could ruin her reputation. You then took money from her under false pretenses, and now you sit here calling that honesty. Is that your final position? Michael's voice dropped to a whisper. It wasn't supposed to go this far. But it did, Judy said. Because arrogance doesn't have brakes, only acceleration. The courtroom was silent again. The plaintiff exhaled, tears forming, relief mixed with exhaustion. Narration returned quietly. The trap was never the evidence. It was his own ego, tightening with every word he refused to swallow. Judy's tone fell to a near whisper, dangerous in its calm. You can stop now, Mr. Rivers, before the truth finishes what your ego started. The cameras zoomed in, his face a portrait of disbelief, fear, and the first hint of realization. He had mistaken confidence for control. Now he had neither. The hum of the fluorescent lights filled the silence like a nervous breath. Michael sat motionless, eyes darting between Judge Judy and the plaintiff, as if the truth might disappear if he stared hard enough. But Judy wasn't looking at him anymore. She was looking at the screen to her left. Let's play something, she said calmly. Her tone didn't rise, but the weight of her voice made everyone straighten. My clerk retrieved security footage from the building lobby. You claimed you never met the plaintiff after her termination, correct? Michael's lips parted. That's right, Judy nodded. Good. Then you'll find this enlightening. The screen flickered to life. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly. The image grainy, time-stamped, undeniable. There he was, Michael Rivers standing in the lobby, envelope in hand. The plaintiff appeared moments later. They exchanged a brief conversation. Then he handed her the envelope. The same week he swore he hadn't seen her. The sound was faint, but clear enough. His voice came through, low but distinct. You don't talk, you don't suffer, got it? The room froze. The plaintiff covered her mouth, tears breaking free, silent, not from shock but from vindication. The audience murmured, disbelief rippling like aftershock. Even the bailiff's eyes flicked toward Judy, uncertain if this was real. Michael slumped forward, a hand on his forehead. That's not what it looks like. Judy didn't move. You told her to stay silent or suffer. Your words, not mine. How does that look to you, Mr. Rivers? He looked up, eyes wild, searching for some loophole, some way to twist reality. You can't use that. That's private property. This courtroom, Judy said coldly, exists to make private accountability public. The tension was electric, the shift absolute. The man who had mocked, laughed, and sneered now looked small against the weight of his own actions. Narration entered like a low, steady drumbeat. Power doesn't vanish. It transfers, and today it crossed the room, from arrogance to truth. Judy glanced toward the plaintiff, voice softer now. You waited quietly for this moment. That takes more strength than he'll ever understand. The plaintiff nodded. tears streaking down her cheeks. "I just wanted to be believed." Michael muttered something under his breath, incoherent, desperate. His body seemed smaller in his chair, shoulders sinking. "You should have stopped talking when you still had something worth saying," Judy said. The lights brightened again, the video frozen on the image of his hand passing the envelope, the perfect symbol of guilt captured forever. Judy exhaled, a sound like finality. "Sometimes," she said, "justice needs no volume." Narration flowed through the silence like a closing note. Truth doesn't shout. It waits. And when it finally speaks, even arrogance learns how to listen. Michael said nothing. His voice, when once loud enough to drown the room, had vanished entirely. The video ended with a soft click, and for a long, aching moment, no one spoke. The courtroom was still, so still it felt like time itself was afraid to move. The screen lingered on its frozen final frame, Michael's hand mid-motion, giving away the envelope that had just destroyed his defense. He didn't look up. His shoulders slumped forward, his hands trembling against the polished wood of the table. All the smirk, all the swagger, gone. What replaced it was something quieter, heavier, guilt wearing the mask of exhaustion. Judge Judy didn't rush. She simply watched him. "Mr. Rivers," she said softly, "do you understand what we've just seen?" He swallowed hard. "It's not what it looks like." "Everything," Judy said, "is exactly what it looks like." The truth usually is. Her tone wasn't cruel. It was something rarer, disappointment, deep and echoing, the kind that cuts further than anger ever could. Michael rubbed his eyes with the heel of his hand. The arrogance that had powered him until now was flickering out like a candle at the end of its wick. The plaintiff, who had sat in silence for nearly the entire hearing, finally spoke. "That was the last time I saw him," she said softly. "He told me I'd regret speaking up. I didn't sleep for weeks," the words hung in the air. Even the camera crew didn't move. Judy's expression softened, not pity but respect. "You stood up anyway," she said. "That's what courage looks like." The plaintiff nodded, tears glistening but unshed. Michael's head snapped up, desperate, almost childlike. "I wasn't trying to hurt anyone, I didn't want to look bad." Judy leaned forward slightly. "And how do you think you look now?" A tremor of quiet laughter rippled from the audience, not mockery but release. Narration crept in like a slow heartbeat. He had spent months silencing others. Now silence was the only thing answering him. Michael sank back into his chair, eyes fixed on nothing. The fight had drained out of him, replaced by something rawer, the first fragile spark of realization. Judy looked down at her notes, then back up at him. "We're not finished yet," she said. "You may want to take a moment to decide whether you're still here to win, or to finally tell the truth." The camera panned across the courtroom, the plaintiff's steady gaze, the audience's rapt attention, the heavy stillness that always follows exposure. Narration returned, gentle but unyielding. In the end, justice isn't loud. It waits in the quiet where arrogance finally runs out of words, and then nothing but silence. It was no longer uncomfortable. It was deserved. Do you believe remorse should erase guilt? Or does justice demand accountability no matter how sorry someone becomes? The silence broke with the scrape of Michael's chair as he leaned forward, desperation seeping through every movement. His face was pale, but his voice tried to find its old rhythm, that mix of arrogance and charm that had always bailed him out before. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," he began, voice trembling just slightly. "You have to understand, people twist things online. You try to defend yourself and suddenly you're the villain." Judy's expression didn't change. Her pen moved slowly across the notepad, a sound so deliberate it was louder than his excuses. "Is that your defense?" she asked without looking up. "That everyone else made you cruel?" Michael flinched. "No, because," she interrupted, "I've yet to meet the man who tripped and fell into an email titled, 'Let's destroy her reputation.'" The courtroom let out a low ripple of sound, shock, disbelief, faint murmurs. The bailiff raised a hand for quiet. Michael rubbed the back of his neck, sweat forming along his hairline. "It wasn't serious," he said weakly. "I didn't think anyone would take it that way." Judy finally looked up, her eyes sharp but her voice even. "You didn't think because you didn't care. That's the difference between ignorance and arrogance. One is blind, the other refuses to see. The plaintiff looked down at her hands, clutching the edge of her folder. Her breathing steadied as she whispered, "He thought it was funny. He told me people like me deserve to be toughened up." Michael's eyes flicked toward her, softening for the first time. "I was wrong, okay? I said things I shouldn't have. But I'm not a bad person." Judy leaned forward, elbows resting on the bench. "Remorse doesn't rewrite what's already written. Mr. Rivers, you don't get to decide when your cruelty expires." Narration weaved through the silence like a cool wind. Desperation always tries to sound like redemption, but you can't bargain with the past once truth has the floor. Michael's tone cracked. "I was under pressure. Everyone expects you to be strong, to win every argument, to never back down. And that pressure," Judy said, "is why you tore someone else down instead of looking in a mirror." The cameras caught his face, the first true crack in the armor. He wasn't smirking. He wasn't angry. He was lost. He tried one last plea. "I just wanted to prove I wasn't a joke." Judy's voice softened, barely above a whisper. "Then maybe stop living like one." The plaintiff inhaled sharply, a sound halfway between pain and release. The audience sat frozen, eyes shifting between them. Narration settled like dust. For the first time, his voice didn't sound powerful. It sounded human, and that was the start of his undoing. Judy's gavel hit the desk once, not to silence the room, but to mark a shift. "Careful, Mr. Rivers," she said. "You're about to argue with evidence again." Michael exhaled, defeated, the sound fragile, like air escaping from a collapsing mask. The gavel's echo hadn't faded when Judy reached for one last folder. Thin, unassuming, yet heavier than anything she'd revealed before. She turned it slowly, setting it before her like a final card in a game he didn't know he was still playing. "Mr. Rivers," she said, her voice deceptively calm, "you've been talking a lot about misunderstanding, about how people took your words the wrong way." He nodded quickly, eager, mistaking her tone for mercy. "Exactly. That's what I've been trying to say all along." Judy met his eyes. "Then perhaps you can help me understand this." She opened the folder. The camera zoomed in. A printed complaint lay inside. Official letterhead dated 2 years ago. She read aloud. "Complainant reports emotional distress caused by Michael Rivers, citing verbal humiliation and online harassment." Michael's face went pale. His mouth twitched, but no sound came. "This," Judy continued, "was filed by a different woman. Same office, same pattern, and the phrasing," she tapped the page with her pen, "is almost identical to what the plaintiff described." A ripple of shock moved through the courtroom. The plaintiff's hand flew to her mouth, eyes wide. Michael stammered, That was a mistake. That woman, she was exaggerating." Judy didn't blink. "So both of them were lying? Both women, years apart, used the same words, described the same behavior, and somehow you're the victim of coincidence." The silence that followed was suffocating. Even the lights seemed dimmer. Narration entered softly. Truth doesn't arrive like thunder. It walks in quietly, holding a mirror. Michael's breathing quickened. His hands fidgeted with his tie, loosening it as if oxygen itself had turned judgmental. People misread me. I'm not cruel. I'm just confident." Judy's tone was low but piercing. "Confidence doesn't mock. It doesn't humiliate. It doesn't need to steal someone's peace to feel tall." He lowered his head, whispering, "I just wanted to be respected." The line lingered, fragile, naked. Judy's expression softened, but her voice stayed firm. "Respect isn't something you demand. It's something you earn by how you treat the people who can't fight back." The plaintiff wiped a tear from her cheek, her voice trembling. "He told me I was weak because I cried, but he's crying now." Judy looked at her, then back at Michael. "That's not weakness," she said quietly. "That's consequence." Narration filled the silence, rhythmic and low. "Every story has two truths, the one we tell and the one that tells on us." Michael pressed his hands together, elbows on the desk, as if praying to the very order he'd mocked. His voice broke on the words. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone." Judy leaned forward. "And that," she said softly, "is the problem. You never meant anything. Not your jokes, not your lies, not your remorse. Until now." Her gavel tapped once. The sound was almost merciful. "The truth isn't cruel, Mr. Rivers," she said. "It's just patient." Michael's head dropped. No words, no defiance, just silence. The kind that feels like surrender. The gavel's echo lingered in the air long after Judy's last words. The once defiant Michael Rivers sat utterly still, as if every sound in the courtroom had been absorbed into the weight pressing down on him. His hands trembled where they rested on the table, fingertips pale against the polished surface. The camera lingered on him, no longer the arrogant provocateur, no longer the man performing for the crowd. Just a human being stripped bare of pretense, staring at the wreckage of his own creation. Judy leaned back slightly, her tone measured but soft. "Mr. Rivers," she began, "you've built a reputation on confidence, on being the loudest voice in every room. Tell me, how does silence feel?" He didn't look up. "Heavy," he muttered. "Like it's waiting for something." "It's waiting," she said, "for honesty." Narration drifted in, gentle as a breath. Ego doesn't explode. It collapses inward, quietly under the weight of everything it refused to face. The plaintiff sat motionless, her fingers tracing the edge of her folder. There was no satisfaction in her expression, only quiet relief, the kind that follows a storm that finally ends. Judy noticed it, her gaze softening. "You've carried this a long time," she said. The plaintiff nodded. He made sure of that. Michael's shoulders tightened. His voice came low, fractured. "I didn't mean for it to go so far. I thought if I looked strong, no one would question me." Judy folded her hands. "That's not strength, Mr. Rivers. That's fear wearing confidence as a disguise." He finally met her eyes, the bravado gone, replaced by something raw. "What am I supposed to do now?" "Start with truth," she said. "You've lied for so long you don't even recognize what it sounds like anymore." The audience sat in still silence. No murmurs, no movement. Only the quiet hum of the cameras capturing a man, slowly realizing that apology isn't about saving face. It's about facing what you've done. The plaintiff exhaled softly, breaking the tension. "I don't hate him," she said, almost whispering. "I just wanted it to stop." Judy nodded once. "It will. Because today it finally hit something he can't control. Reality." Michael pressed his palms together, the gesture part prayer, part surrender. "I don't know how to fix this." "You start," Judy said, "by accepting that not everything broken can be fixed by you." Narration closed in quietly. For the first time, he wasn't performing. He wasn't pretending. He was simply standing in the ruins of who he thought he was, and realizing that truth, even when it hurts, is the only thing that can rebuild what ego destroyed. The camera panned out slowly, Judy at the bench, the plaintiff steady but tearful, and Michael Rivers staring down at his own reflection in the glossy wood of the desk. The image of a man confronting himself for the very first time. Judy's final words of the moment came like a whisper. "Now we begin the part that actually matters, understanding." The courtroom was still, not with tension now, but with the quiet that follows truth finally spoken. The audience seemed to breathe in unison, watching as Michael sat with his head bowed, the once confident man now dwarfed by the silence he'd spent so long avoiding. The cameras caught everything, the trembling of his fingers, the twitch at the corner of his mouth, the way pride slowly gave way to shame. Judge Judy didn't rush. She gave him time to feel the gravity of his own words, time to realize that apologies mean nothing until you understand what they cost someone else. When she finally spoke, her tone carried no triumph, only gravity. "Mr. Rivers," she said, "you've used a lot of words in your life. Sarcasm, insults, excuses. Tell me, do you remember any of the words you've said that didn't hurt someone?" Michael's throat moved, but no sound came out. He stared down at the table, eyes unfocused. Then, almost inaudible, he said, "I thought if I acted strong I'd be forgiven faster." Judy leaned forward. "That's not strength. That's cowardice dressed as confidence." The words landed like a slow strike, not loud, but impossible to escape. Narration came softly, layered over the silence. For years he'd spoken to be heard, not understood. Now, for the first time, he was hearing himself, and the sound was unbearable. The plaintiff wiped at her eyes, but didn't look away from him. "You made me feel like I was nothing," she said quietly. "Every time I tried to stand up for myself, you made me a joke." Michael lifted his head, his voice shaking. "I know, And I told myself it wasn't that bad, that everyone exaggerates. Was it easier, Judy asked, to believe that than to admit you were wrong? He nodded, eyes glassy. It was easier than feeling small. Judy's tone softened, not with sympathy but truth. You were never small because you admitted fault. You became small the moment you hid from it. The plaintiff looked down, her voice barely a whisper. I never wanted to ruin you. I just wanted to be treated like a person. Michael's lip quivered. I'm sorry, he said, almost choking on the words. I really am. The apology hung there, fragile, uncertain but real. Narration flowed gently. Words once used as weapons now trembled as confessions. For the first time his voice carried weight, not because it was loud, but because it was true. Judy leaned back, exhaling. Maybe now you're beginning to understand. The words we throw away don't disappear. They live in the people we aim them at, and sometimes they come back. The plaintiff nodded, tears running silently down her face. She wasn't angry anymore, just free. Michael sat back, eyes down, the smirk long gone. For the first time in his life, he didn't need to have the last word, because he finally heard what his words had done. The light in the courtroom had shifted, softer now, golden from the late afternoon sun filtering through the blinds. The harsh fluorescence that once reflected off polished wood now gave way to something warmer, gentler. Even the air seemed to breathe differently. The storm had passed, but the quiet it left behind wasn't peace. It was reflection. Michael sat, motionless, staring at the tabletop where his own reflection shimmered faintly in the lacquer. The arrogance that once filled every movement had been stripped away. What remained was a man who finally understood that consequences are not punishment. They are mirrors. Judge Judy's voice cut through the quiet, calm, but heavy. Mr. Rivers, this case stopped being about money a long time ago. What we're weighing here isn't dollars, it's damage, not just to her but to yourself. He swallowed hard, nodding slightly. I know that now. Do you? Judy asked, leaning forward. Because knowing and changing are not the same thing. The plaintiff watched him closely, her expression unreadable. Not anger, not pity, just quiet truth. You taught me that silence protects no one, she said, and I think that's the only thing I'll ever thank you for. Her words landed with gentle precision. Michael's eyes flicked toward her, the faintest nod trembling in his posture. Narration seeped through the stillness. Forgiveness isn't a transaction. It's the space between acknowledgement and change, and not everyone earns it in time. Judy placed her pen down carefully, folding her hands. You've treated this courtroom like a stage, she said softly. But real justice doesn't perform. It doesn't clap. It just is. Michael's breath hitched. I didn't think it would go this far. I thought I could talk my way through it like always. Judy nodded slightly. That's the thing about truth, Mr. Rivers. It doesn't negotiate. The plaintiff took a deep breath. I lost friends because of you. I lost confidence. I stopped trusting people who tried to help me. But I also learned that fear ends the moment you stop protecting the person who caused it. Judy turned toward her, voice gentle now. And that lesson, she said, is why you're stronger than you know. The plaintiff's tears slipped quietly down her cheeks. Michael's eyes followed, and for the first time he didn't look defensive. He looked ashamed, genuinely, painfully ashamed. Narration deepened like a heartbeat. There is no applause in accountability. Only the sound of pride breaking quietly, so something better can grow. Judge Judy lifted her gavel, the motion slow, deliberate. Before I render judgment, she said, understand this. Arrogance blinds faster than deceit. You built your life in that darkness, but today you saw the light. Whether you step into it or run from it is up to you. The gavel hovered mid-air, the moment stretched to eternity. Before you hear the verdict, can people truly change, or do they just get better at hiding who they are? The courtroom waited, suspended in a silence so deep it felt sacred. Judge Judy's gavel hovered above the desk, a symbol of finality balanced between mercy and consequence. The afternoon light caught the edge of her bench, throwing a thin band of gold across the faces before her. Michael Rivers sat still, shoulders Heavy, eyes fixed on the floor as though the truth itself had weight. Then the gavel dropped. One clean strike. Sharp. Absolute. Judgment for the plaintiff, Judy said, her tone steady, controlled, not triumphant, not cold. Full restitution awarded. The sound rippled through the room, final yet quiet, like the closing note of a requiem. The plaintiff exhaled, a trembling breath that carried months of fear, humiliation, and disbelief out of her body. Tears welled, but her lips curled into the faintest, exhausted smile. Michael didn't move. His mouth parted slightly, as if to speak, but no words came. He blinked rapidly, the same way people do when they realize the ending they've reached is one they wrote themselves. Judy set her gavel down, leaning forward. "Mr. Rivers," she began softly, "you thought arrogance was strength. You believed volume could drown out truth. But today you learned that silence can be louder than any defense." He nodded, eyes red. "I know," he whispered. "I see that now." Judy tilted her head, studying him. "Good. Because seeing is the first step toward becoming. You don't get to undo what you did, but you can stop pretending it was someone else's fault." Narration entered gently, carrying the weight of closure. Justice doesn't humiliate, it humbles. And when pride finally falls quiet, the world hears truth again. The plaintiff stood slowly, gathering her papers with shaking hands. When she spoke, her voice was softer than it had been all day. "I don't hate you," she said. "I just hope you never make anyone feel small again." Michael looked at her for the first time, really looked. His reply came out as a whisper, barely louder than breath. "I won't." The audience remained silent, sensing this was not a moment for applause. Even the camera crew kept their distance, capturing the image of two people who had finally stepped out of a war neither had truly wanted to fight. One victorious, the other awakened. Judy leaned back, her tone almost reflective. "Let this be a lesson. Not for punishment, but for perspective. Arrogance builds walls, truth breaks them, and today those walls came down." The bailiff called the court adjourned. Papers rustled, chairs scraped, but the energy in the room was different now, quieter, softer, almost reverent. Michael lingered a moment longer before rising. As he turned to leave, his reflection crossed Judy's bench. The light hit his face, not with the glare of exposure, but the gentler shimmer of understanding. Narration closed the story with finality. Justice didn't roar that day. It whispered, and he finally listened.